In this video, we sort out the shock mounts. We get the diff hanging under its own weight. We design some spacers. Our 3D printed part for the transfer case comes in. Our torsion beam comes in and we start assembling it. We make progress on the all-wheel drive 1.8 Cruze turbo project. Let's get after it. Let's switch gears and finish mounting the rear diff. We did get in this bracket here that we had custom cut out. However, I did mess up the dimensions just a little bit. So to keep this moving forward, instead of waiting a couple weeks for another part to come in, I'm just going to narrow this part. I'm going to cut out 1/2 inch. So we're off by 1/2 inch. Reason being is when I made this hole here, I forgot to lengthen this entire thing. Anyhow, I adjusted it in the computer, so we're all set there. So I'll just remove that 1/2 inch here, close it in, we'll weld it up, we'll weld these two pieces together, and then we'll weld this to the underside of the chassis, and we'll have the diff completely sorted out. Let's get after and not waste any time, shall we? Look at that, I got my spectacles on. That all sorted, we're just going to tack weld this together real quick. Would it help if I had some fucking gas? All right. Let's fully weld this thing out. Got this thing all welded up. Now I just need to level out the high spots in this weld so that way we can mount it flush underneath the car and weld it. So I'm gonna get started on that. Well, the design I came up with didn't quite work as anticipated, so I'm going to revise this design. I cut off those two 90-degree supports just to give this thing a little more rigidity. Cut that off because I didn't have enough clearance for that bushing to sit there. I had those legs too long, so it was hitting the casting. So I'm going to chop those off and then we're going to cap these. That should help add in a little more rigidity, boxing this thing up, giving a little more support here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I've got a piece of flat bar steel here and we'll make that work. Just all part of making up things, you know, just creating things out of thin air. Sometimes you have to revise your design. So I'm gonna revise it in real life and then I'll go back to the computer and revise this. But it's all part of the R&D and I'm bringing y'all along for the ride. All right, I got my weld this thing up and we'll try again. Hopefully y'all can still see. I finished welding this thing up. Although it's not as aesthetically pleasing as I had hoped it would be, it still will make for a solid bracket. As I'm working with this, I keep finding more and more things that I need to change up. Like this access point here. A bolt that goes through wants to rub on the inside, but we can change all that in the computer. I've marked where I'm going to weld this thing, so I need to take my flap disc, get rid of the paint, and then weld this thing upside down, which is going to be tough, but I think we can get it. And there we have it. It's hanging underneath its own weight. Got it welded up. Did start to get some crap in the welds, just because there is paint underneath that sheet metal. I'll probably have to go back. I've got a guy that's got a MIG welder that does exhaust work. I'll have them fully weld that out. As the way it sits now, I know it'll hold up just fine, but just in case. One of the next things I need to do to the suspension is we need to sort out the shock. The shock normally mounts. Push this damn thing up. Normally mounts in this hole right here. And when I line that shock up with this hole, we're hitting the CV axle here. So I just need to move this out of the way ever so slightly, not very much. So what I got are these generic shock mount brackets. And what we can do is we can mount this thing. We'll weld it on this side here, just to move this thing out of the way, just enough so we can put a bolt through this and clear our CV joint. So I'm going to unbolt the trailing arms once again. We'll put it on the bench and then we'll clean up the metal. We'll move the shock mount point over just enough to clear without it binding. We've got plenty of wiggle room in there with that rubber bushing in there, so that's not an issue. We'll weld the thing up. Let's get after it. But before I take this thing apart, let's go ahead and get some measurements for the spacers between the differential and the axles. There is some play in and out with the axles. However, I got them pulled out just a little bit. I think it's a good spot, so let's take a measurement. It's pretty cool rotating this. Seeing the axles turn. On the passenger side, we're looking at 21 tenths, and the driver's side, we're at about 31. Okay, that's about all I need there. Just in case you're wondering, I do have that beam installed while I'm taking these measurements. If only it cleared just a little more, it would work. Now I just need to remove this stuff once again. One of the things I need to do in order to make this bracket work, we need to narrow this shock just a little bit. We're right at 0.55 and some change. And with this, we're at 0.51, well, an inch and a half basically. So I'm just going to trim off what I need to make that clearance over there on the old belt sander. So let's not stall and get to work. There we go. Sweet. As I look at this bracket, I know this probably isn't the best method to do this. However, I think it'll hold up fine. This is 1/4 inch steel. This is meant to go on some round tubing. This gives it a little more rigidity. I suppose I could bridge this off, make this a little more rigid, use a piece of steel here. I think I'll do that, at least. Yeah, I think that'll work fine. What do y'all think? Let me know down in the comments. I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up, prep it, get it as clean as I can, so that way we get some strong welds. Well, I think I've had about as much fun as one individual can have. Filled gold out of your hand. See if we can't make sure we have enough space here for either a nut or a bolt. Angle to be pretty similar to what it was. Okay, that should about do it right there. Now I just need to tack weld it in. There we go. It came out nice and easy. Okay, now to fully weld this thing up. I've got this thing completely welded up. Just to stiffen it up just a little bit, I'm going to put a crossbar up here as well. And this thing is solid as is. I'll do that just to make it a little more rigid. And I think we'll be good to go. So I'll take some of the steel here. We're only gonna be able to get away with 1/2 inch just because how the shock clears, but I think that'll get it. Where were we last when we left off? My battery died on my camera, so I continued making progress. So I thought to myself, what better way to stiffen this whole thing up than just boxing this off and having a piece that comes up to here. Let's fully weld this out. Almost like what we got going here to make things a little more rigid. We'll add that little triangulated piece there. So I'm gonna get back after it and keep making progress. Let's get after it. It is another day. Yesterday we managed to get the shock mounts all welded up. Came up with a solution that I think will be really rigid, stiff. I think it will support the shocks really well. The welds came out decent. There were a couple welds that I cut out where it started getting a little porous. So I redid a couple of them, but I'm happy with the way this turned out. Here's the underside. I did have to cut this out and redo it. It was just porous and bubbling up, so working on getting better at welding and recognizing this kind of stuff. I mean, I could tell when it's not welding smooth, but the best solution in order to fix this kind of stuff essentially is just to grind it completely out and start over, which is not a big deal. I'm really enjoying doing this. So now we'll toss this in the car, bolt everything up with the shock, And then we have the other side to do. Let's go. Back on the floor we go, people. Back on the floor. Starting to forget what bolts are what. Try not to smash my fingers. No promises. Smashed them plenty of times before. And I've also smashed my fingers. Oh, but going to put the spring in there that we're actually going to run. These are the adjustable springs that ZZP sent us, I don't know, maybe a couple of years ago. So thanks guys. Let's toss this in, make sure this clears just fine. Is that right? Man, look at the height difference. All right, well, let's toss it in. I'll have to go back and look at their video. Looks like quite the difference. And I have this thing raised all the way up. Would you look at that? Look at all that clearance. With these springs not being as wide as these, man, we got all the clearance. Yes. Now I just need to do the other side. All right, let's go ahead and do that. What are these guys doing? Guy and gal? I don't know. One obstacle I'm facing with this trailing arm is because of the Watts linkage mounting point. Here's our bracket. To move our shock back a little bit, we're going to need to be able to fit a nut underneath here. And in order to do that, I'm gonna have to lop this tab off here. And we could potentially go back and box this back off. I doubt it's gonna hurt anything. This is a pretty thick casting. Okay, yeah, that's what we're gonna have to do. Or could potentially raise this up a little bit. Don't necessarily have any metal that's that thick. Yeah, I'll just lop this off. Okay. Shoo-wee, that was a lot of steel to cut. We'll just make a little block off plate right here. The rest of this is pretty damn thick steel. S-T-I-L-L, but it also is S-T-E-E-L. We got everything all prepped up. Clean this the best that I can. We can weld this up. Toss our little bracket on, move it out the way. Now we have plenty of clearance here for a nut. All right, let's get after it. Got this bracket welded up, got our little template. That should work fantastic. So I'm going to trace this off on some steel and cut it out. Everything's all tacked up. Now I just need to fully weld it out. We'll be all finished with this. fully welded up. Got our bracket all welded with our gusset to support this thing. I think this one came out slightly prettier. At least just on the weld side of things. And then we cap this thing off here. Welded up any of the little cuts that I made getting this thing off using that cutoff wheel with the grinder. However, we got to package it. The bracket that I designed, I had 3D printed, so that way once the transmission comes in, we can test fit it up, make sure this part fits perfectly, or we can make revisions before we send it off to production, have it made out of aluminum. 802 Garage, Mr. Aaron sent us, I asked him if he could 3D print that bracket that supports the transfer case to the engine. I'm pretty excited to check this out. Let's go ahead and open this. Looks like this kind of cracked open a little bit. Oh man. Wow, dude. Man, I really appreciate that, brother. We both thought it would be kind of funny. He already had this filament set up in his 3D printer and really just needed this to check fitment. That's insane. So here it is. Here's our 3D printed part. It says multicolor filament. Here's our transfer case. This guy bolt up right here to this portion. We've got our other side that will bolt up to our transmission, output shaft, and then this bolts up to the block supporting this end of the transfer case. That transmission should come in on the 24th, a little delayed with the holiday shipping, but once it comes in, we'll bolt the transmission in, verify that this fits, and we can either have this produced out of some strong filament or just have it machined out of aluminum. I do think I want to revise this design a little bit. Really like how this part came out. I think we'll do the same thing on the back because I don't think it really needs to be that damn thick. So it will reduce some of the material, make it a little lighter. Very cool, man. Aaron with 802 Garage, thank you, brother. I really appreciate it. This helps a lot. And while we're on the topic of designing things, check this out. I drew up my spacers in the computer, sent it over to my dude, and he's already got it back. So there's the spacer. I'm gonna have these 3D printed as well. Check fitment, and then we'll have a couple machined. I just ended up doing 1/4 of an inch, put 1/4 of an inch both sides, middle of the road for both of them. Progress. All right, we got our packages from Sin Cut Sin. Let's open them up. I'm anxious to open these. Let's go. Must have ran out of tape here. Sweet, sweet. Wow, those are pretty meaty. I'd tap that. That's pretty funny. So here's the first part of it. Nice and thick. And then got these long sections here. It's gonna be an early Christmas. Christmas sweet. Okay. That also go like so. Well, seems like everything's gonna fit up okay. It'll be fun puzzling this, piecing this together. But there we go. We need to weld it together. It's our stainless steel piece, a little torsion beam that I designed up. Because why not? That'll look pretty damn cool under there. Oh, what the hell? Let's go ahead and tack this thing together. Get this assembled? Yeah? All right, let's go. Well, there we have it. This thing looks pretty damn cool. Just did 3 tacks on each side. Managed to shove this thing down in here, tuck it so we can just weld right here. I still need to pull this up just a little bit so it's flush, like here. Close this gap up. And we have our little end caps that will cover up the tubing on the trailing arm. Things will go like so. We'll make sure everything is nice and square. Then there's this little piece that will sit right down in there. Just need to clamp this and pull this in a little bit, but that is pretty freaking cool. That's going to about do it for this video. I mean, that was a week's worth of work there. I've got another video I'm working on. I'll give you a little bit of a sneak peek. I'm almost finished with the surge tank and the fuel cell here. I ended up going with the fuel cell after all. It's coming out pretty clean. Maybe I'll have that one up this Sunday. I'm gonna try and get this video out today, Friday. Just depends with the holidays. If I don't, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I hope to get videos up consistently, but we shall see with the holidays. You know how that goes. Family, kids, all that stuff. But thank you for tuning in. Be sure to like the video, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace out.